No one is actually dead until the ripples they cause die away. Terry Pratchett. The way in which Americans have dealt with and ritualized the terrible fact of death has changed with the history and culture of the country. A keen observer in a North American cemetery today will notice stark differences in the headstones over time. Headstones have changed not only in size, shape, and height, but also in what they can tell a visitor about the deceased and the time from which they come. Symbols have always been a simple and effective way to communicate ideas and beliefs in a fairly simple manner. Symbolism doesn't require the use of written language to convey meaning, and therefore they can span large language barriers and even time. Though some symbols endure the tests of time and cultural change, most carry meaning for a generation or two, and then fall into silence. American cemeteries over the past 4.5 centuries have undergone some dramatic periods of change. The Puritans of early America had a very matter-of-fact way of treating death that would seem rather cold and callous today. During the late colonial and early American Republican periods, gravestones lost their cold symbolism and embraced a plainness. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, gravestones became more intricate and bore symbols shared by groups and whole communities. Beginning after about 1935, gravestones slowly began to become more individualized and bore fewer and fewer communal symbols. In this video, we'll discuss many common cemetery symbols from the colonial period through to the early 20th century. The memento mori, or death's head. This symbol dates back to the medieval period in Europe, and specifically during the Black Death in the mid-1300s. In America, these symbols are often found in cemeteries in New England. The death's head was a symbol adopted by the Puritan faithful and provided a simple, factual sermon, namely, that life was made up of 3 basic facts: that one was born, lived, and died. Whether or not one would be saved in the kingdom of God was not something an individual could help, and therefore, there is no point in any hopeful symbolism on a headstone. The death's head can be found beyond Puritan cemeteries, and are usually found on the graves of secret society members. The next time you are in a cemetery and encounter a skull or death's head on a tombstone, listen carefully, as it will tell you this timeless poem. Remember, friends, as you pass by, as you are now, so was I. As I am now, you will be. Prepare for death, and follow me. Headstones made after the American Revolution are decidedly less grim and take on a more hopeful symbolism throughout the 19th and into the early part of the 20th century. Flora and fauna are commonly used as symbols during this time period. Flora. Throughout human history, flowers have been used as powerful symbols. The Egyptians used the lotus or lily. In late medieval England, powerful noble families adopted roses as their personal symbols. In Japan, the chrysanthemum has for nearly 1,000 years represented the imperial family. The so-called language of flowers became highly popular in Europe and America during the 19th century. For example, a bouquet of a particular kind of flower, sent from one person to another, was really a coded message used to express feelings that may have otherwise been impolite or improper if spoken frankly. Roses. Roses are a common symbol on the graves of women, though they are not exclusive to women. The rose is a classic symbol of grace and beauty. When you do find a rose symbol on the grave of a woman, look carefully, as the blossom may tell you something about the individual's death. If the rose is budding, it often means the young woman died before she could fully bloom in life. If the rose is in full blossom, the woman was mature, but look at the stem. Is it broken? If so, it suggests that the woman died suddenly and before her time. A fully bloomed rose, along with a rosebud, may mean that the woman died in childbirth, along with her baby. Morning glory. Morning glory is a simple symbol of the Christian belief in resurrection. This symbolism comes from the fact that the blossoms close at night, but reopen with the rising of the sun. Ivy. Ivy is a multifaceted symbol owing to its color and three-pointed leaf. The three-pointed leaf is a symbol of the Trinity. The clinging nature of the ivy is a symbol of attachment and loyalty. And because it is green, even in the harshest winters, it serves as a symbol of immortality. Wheat. Wheat is often shown as a sheaf, bundled together with a sickle. The wheat represents a life lived to the fullest, finally ending at a ripe old age. Oak leaves. An oak is a hardy tree, and its leaves represent endurance, fortitude, honor, and courage. Oak leaves on a grave may mean the deceased endured severe trials, or that they lived a life fully and honorably. Trees or tree stumps. Tree stumps as headstones were popular from about the 1880s to the 1910s. A tree stump can typically mean two things. The first being that a person was cut down before their time, and the second being that a person was a member of the Woodmen of the World, a group about which I will talk later in this video. Trees were also used in combination with one or more other symbols. Ferns. Ferns are a symbol of loyalty and humility. A deceased person may have been a loyal member of a family, religion, or other group. Grapes. Grapes are a common symbol found on Catholic graves. They represent the Eucharist or sacrament and the atonement of Christ. Calla lilies. Calla lilies were popular funeral flowers for the Victorians. They have a large, pure white bloom and symbolize the resurrection. This lily was so popular, in fact, that a bouquet of calla lilies on a corpse, or coffin, or casket, is a classic image of the death ritual in the 19th century. One can see calla lilies used as part of the theming at Disneyland's Haunted Mansion. Fauna. The average American headstone for an adult during the 19th century was not commonly decorated with animals. When animals are seen, they are usually closely connected to Christian theology, such as the lamb and the dove. Lamb. The lamb is commonly seen on the graves of children. Beyond the lamb being a symbol of innocence and youth, lambs are often portrayed laying down, a position which symbolizes being at rest or at peace. Lambs also represent the deceased as a Christian who was a member of the flock of Christ. Doves. Doves are another commonly used symbol on the graves of children, though they are sometimes seen on the graves of adults. Doves come in various postures. Many doves are in an upward flight, representing the soul of the deceased on their way to God. Some doves in flight bear a small olive branch, representing the peace of a righteous soul. On some children's graves, the dove is seen lying on the ground with a broken wing. This is symbolic of a young child who died in their innocence. Other symbols. American funerary rituals have also embraced other symbols, some modern and some ancient. The column. The column is perhaps one of the most elegant headstones found in a cemetery. One may mistake a broken column as some evidence of past vandalism, but what may look like vandalism is really intentional design. Broken columns bear much the same symbolism as that of tree stumps. They represent a life broken off before it could be completed. The gates ajar. This symbol was popular on graves after the 1868 publication of a popular book by Elizabeth Stuart Phelps called The Gates Ajar. The gates ajar suggests that the gates of heaven are capable of swinging in and out, allowing free and open communication between heaven and earth. Books. Books may be open or closed. A closed book may represent that their life story has ended. An open book may contain some writing and symbolize a brief look into the pages of a person's life. Sometimes books may simply mean the person was a devotee of literature and learning. Torches. Torches are almost always found upside down. When a torch is held upside down, it goes out, and as such, it is a symbol of an extinguished life. Clasped hands. A very common symbol, this has been a point of speculation in modern times. To some, the clasped hands symbolize the deceased's welcome into the afterlife. To many others, the position of the fingers is an important clue to the real meaning. The hand on the left has straight fingers, the fingers of the dead, while the hand on the right belongs to the living, as it is clasping the dead hand in a final touch. This symbol represents a fond, but painful farewell, as one passes from the world of the living to the world of the dead. The anchor. An anchor on a headstone was a popular Christian symbol of hope. An anchor represents a person anchored in the hope of the salvation offered by Christ. However, anchors can also mean the obvious, that the deceased was a sailor. An upward pointing hand. An upward pointing hand directs the attention of the visitor heavenward, where, presumably, the soul of the deceased now resides. Rocks or stones. This is a common Christian symbol based in a New Testament parable, where a foolish man builds his house upon sand, but the wise man built his house upon stone. Therefore, a stone or rock on a grave is a symbol of gospel faith. Secret societies. Before modern workers' compensation laws and health insurance plans, people had no security if they were injured on or off the job, and for many miners and their families, a work injury or sudden death almost certainly meant destitution. In the late 19th century, many fraternal societies were founded in order to improve individual access to health care and offer some financial security in the event of a work accident. These quasi-secret societies were far more than mere insurance agencies, but organizations that fostered a sense of community among people who otherwise would have been strangers. Modern Woodmen of America. The Modern Woodmen of America was founded by Joseph Cullen Root in 1883. Apparently, Root heard a sermon one Sunday about pioneering men who cleared away forests to provide for their families. So inspired, Root wanted to create a pioneering society that would clear away many modern social problems for families. The Modern Woodmen of America symbolized progressive values, patriotism, and mutual support. Their symbol is crossed axes, surrounded by the letters MWA. Graves also sometimes show a maple leaf bearing the letters MWA. Sadly for Root, divisions within the society led to his expulsion. Down but not out, Root created the Woodmen of the World in 1890. Woodmen of the World was similar to the modern Woodmen in many ways, but the Woodmen of the World had always been an insurance agency at its heart. In its early years, the Woodmen of the World would only accept white males between the ages of 18 and 45 who lived in the 12 healthy estates, and who did not work in dangerous occupations such as train brakemen, miners, or even bartenders. Root later relaxed the admission requirements, and its membership swelled. Some Woodmen insurance plans even included a wood-shaped headstone for the insured. These headstones were offered up until about 1930, and are definitely among the more unique found in cemeteries today. The Woodmen of the World are still around, and are now known as Woodman Life, and they still offer insurance. The Ancient Order of United Workmen. This society is most commonly known as AOUW, and was founded in the late 1860s. Initially, the Ancient Order of the United Workmen was an organization that had two parts, the first being a fraternal group that had its rituals and a grand lodge. The second part was a growing insurance business. Upon entering a lodge, a member was required to pay $1. When the member died, the deceased heirs were given $2,000, and all of the members had to again pay $1 to remain in the fraternity. By 1885, the AOUW was the largest fraternal benefit society in America, and lasted until 1952, when the organization dissolved and each state branch was left to fend for itself. Some became life insurance companies, and others just faded away. The Oddfellows. The Oddfellows have their roots in 18th century England, but were formally established in the United States in 1819. Officially known as the Independent Order of Oddfellows, this society is popularly known by the prominent symbol of a three-link chain and the letters FLT, which stand for friendship, love, and truth. The Oddfellows share many of the same symbols with the Freemasons, such as the all-seeing eye. In fact, in centuries past, the Oddfellows were sometimes seen as being a poor man's Freemasonry. The Elks. Officially called the Benevolent and Protective Order of the Elks, or BOPE, the Elks got their start in New York City in the years after the Civil War as a drinking club called the Jolly Corks. At the time, New York had an ordinance which prevented the sale of alcohol on the Sabbath. In order to get around this law, a group of men created the Jolly Corks in order to have their liquor and drink it too. The Jolly Corks soon became quite popular, and the group decided to formalize under a new name. It's not clear how the elk became the symbol for the group, but it did in the late 1860s or early 1870s. The elks are recognizable by their symbol comprising of a bull elk surrounded by a clock. The hands of the clock are always at 11 o'clock, which is the hour of remembrance for the elks. The elks still exist today, and still have a focus on having a good time, but also sponsor charitable causes and scholarships. This is not an exhaustive list of gravestone symbolism, but we hope that it will make your next visit to the cemetery a little more interesting.